Here we go. So I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Lori Pindar. She is our presenter today. Lori is an assistant director for the Irwin Center for Brand Communications here at Clemson University. In addition to teaching, Dr. Pindar coordinates advising and registration for her department and advises the Communication Studies ambassadors. And I'm going to let her take it from there with any further introduction.
Well, thank you, Heather. And I see some familiar names I've emailed with or I've seen passing by. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. And give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully we will have a beautiful experience this morning talking a little bit more about how you can share who you are, what you've got going on, and how you can parlay that into being successful into careers, internships, whatever it may be, and whatever point you are in. So if you have questions, because I am presenting from just one screen, just drop them in the chat. We will work with you to make sure that just stop me. I'm happy to address anything that feels or looks or sounds like something of interest or just generally curious about. So I am going to launch into this, but again, it's a pleasure, and my contact information will be shared at the end as well. So if you have any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. So here we go. Digital identity, personal brand, and prestige. What does all that mean? What are we talking about today? So I'm going to give my computer a moment. Okay, now, all right. So today we're going to talk about building your personal brand across media platforms. Okay, so we know that all of you exist in some way, shape, or form on social media. So whether it's Instagram, a LinkedIn profile, a Facebook profile, your my.Clemson presence, whatever it may be, you do exist in this space. How do you harness it? How do you make sure beyond like, oh, I have a Finstagram, so all my other stuff is there. Nobody can see it. We can. So how can you really harness what you bring to the table and let other people know, especially at this crucial point in your academic careers as you are looking at your professional acumen? We'll look at a few core competencies to make sure that you are doing your best to optimize your leadership and professional skills, and then how we can look at feedback, especially when that feedback loop is us reassessing kind of who we are and what we're about. In the sense of, I'm a student, I'm trying to do these wonderful things because I have gone to school, I've done the work, I've made the grade, I have the GPA, but what does that mean in real life? So here we go. Now, some of you, I know I've corresponded with you because you're interested, or maybe you're a brand communication minor or a communication or sports communication student. So that's my world that I live in, and I study branding from a critical lens. So what I love is helping others see the purpose, the point, the passion, and where they connect with the brand. So we're going to start kind of big picture here. And again, don't hesitate to stop me. Most of this should sound familiar or at least be accessible. And if it's not, we can back it up and really put the pieces together. But what is a brand? Big or small, you yourself are a brand. Okay. So we consume brands. I have Starbucks coffee in this cup. I really like Key shades because one, they come from Australia and I really love their commercials, and pretty people wear them. And I want to be one of the pretty people, right? I have on some Nikes right now because I'm standing up and they're really comfortable. So I consume brands. I am talking to you from an MacBook, right? And I have my iPhone here. So we consume brands, but you are also making judgments about my credibility, my consistency, and how I'm communicating effectively with you. I have some positional power, right? But you're still taking in the social, the physical, the visible cues that help you understand who I am and who you are in relation to me. And that is why we study branding, because our world is full of these labels and we build relationships with them. However, you yourself, if you think of yourself as a brand, you have to stay in front of that conversation, okay? So if you don't define who you are for others, they will define it for you. So that's why we read introductions before a speaker comes to stage, right? We need to set the foundation from which we build. And that's what you're going to learn how to do today. So I have a couple of logos here, right? So hopefully, and I'm actually gonna try to pull up the chat here, but if you could drop in the chat, and Heather, if you could assist me with this because it's off screen for me, but I'm gonna hover over one of these images and I just want people to let me know what it is. And if you could just verbally tell me what they're putting in the chat, that would be fantastic. So first one right here, do we see it? It's a red circle, white circle.
We're still seeing your front page.
Oh,
Not
no.
advancing.
Oh, well, let me just
Sorry.
start there because you need to be seeing a page full of logos. I'm glad I asked. So here we go. I'm going to reshare and then you should see the logos. All right. So
There we go.
you
We're good.
see it now? Okay. All right. So do we see what this is that my cursor is hovering over?
I have several people naming Target.
Oh my gosh, brilliance. Brilliance at work, 10:07 on a Tuesday. I love it. What about right here? Hovering over more of a rainbow.
Instagram. Several people are on it.
Yeah. Okay. I told you this is not hard. Literally, easiest thing you'll do all day. Okay. I'm going to go over here, right there in the middle. Does anybody know what this is?
PlayStation.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh. Brilliance at work. Brilliance at work. What about right here in green and white?
Starbucks.
Yes, let me take a sip right now while I hover over these.
The Olympics.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. All right. Last one, best one.
Come on, guys. Clemson. Tiger. There we go. We got
All
it.
right. So that was not to condescend or belittle your intelligence, but sure, I hovered over things, but a brand is not a logo. Okay. So I know that you inherently get that brands are bigger than that, but a lot of people just stop there, which makes me have a little bit of job security because they don't know why they consume, why we produce. But if you think about it, if I looked at a picture and I looked at all your screens that have your name or a headshot on that, that's not you, right? You look great. And I love your names, but that's not who you are inherently. They're a combination of things. So I'm going to ask you, who is this? Anybody know?
Yes, they know it's Beyonce. Queen Bee.
Thank you. I would love to tell you that you're all right, except you're wrong. I took this picture last week. It's literally me right now. Okay. So that's not correct. You're looking at me like, what? No, what is she talking about? Well, yes, that's a picture of Beyonce, but it's not Beyonce. It's got some mannerisms. It's got what we believe Beyonce to be because of other circulated images. But I don't know about you, but I've never seen her in the flesh outside of going to the numerous concerts, but being at a distance, okay, a healthy distance. But I don't know if that legitimately is Beyonce, right? But I do. And I'm firm in that because what you're not going to tell me is that one, I know y'all didn't believe that was me, flattered as I might be if you did, but you have a combination of areas and things that you can pull from. So what is it that makes branding so fascinating, but also so difficult? And why are you here to learn how you can be successful at it? Well, if you remember nothing else from this presentation, and I'm happy to share it with you, know that logos, pictures, images, the things that we do and how we interact are just pieces of a larger puzzle. And that puzzle is often evolving. So a brand is the space that you occupy really in the hearts of people. So how do people feel about you, right? And you can apply this to global brands like a Nike or an Adidas or an Apple, or to you. You occupy emotional space in the minds of people, your professors, your advisors, your mentors, your friends, your family. This is where we have a couple of questions and a couple of exercises that we'll do. And I want you to like screen share or take a snapshot of the screen, but use these and ask other people about how do they see you? What do they think about you? Also, brands are about relationships. So after this, some of you may email me. Some of you may want to go grab a coffee or set up a Zoom call. That's building a relationship. Some of you may not be as comfortable doing that, but will challenge yourself to do so. Or we'll do it with maybe, I don't know, setting an appointment at the Career Center to look over your resume. And that's step one. But it's all a part of building a relationship. Okay. And then just so you know, you're never going to stop building relationships and you'll call upon people, places, and things that you never thought you would. So building relationships is so important. But understanding your brand and knowing your brand will mean that you are aware of how valuable you are, because what we identify and what we understand about ourselves and about the world around us, it exists in our minds and it's forever in our minds. So it's the most valuable piece of real estate, because once you exist in here and once you have a relationship, then you are golden. Okay. Because now you're going to know what you need to do to adjust all the things that are going to shape your story. So branding, let's get into the nitty gritty of it. So branding really helps align how you or your organization, because you're going to be employed somewhere, right, would like to be viewed with what people actually think about you. So you have to know who your audience is. Ooh, typo on this slide, but you also have to know your organization. So I'm sure we all went through, you got to college, so you went through some sort of high school and middle school experience, right? And I don't know if you just had a charmed life, but typically those teenage years are a little bit more difficult than most. Let me tell you, your 20s are going to be great, your 30s even better, and you'll live long lives. But we all can reflect back to that moment where somebody said something and it's all gossip and it's all a little bit nutty. And then next thing you know, somebody's not sitting next to somebody in the cafeteria, or somebody has this opinion that we don't know where it came from, but it has changed the shape of how we look at this person. And then now that a few of you are probably a couple of years removed from graduation, you probably don't even remember what that thing was. And maybe you've built a relationship with this person who, as you have gotten older, it didn't matter what somebody had said or done, or maybe you were in fact that individual who had to go through this weird teen angsty period. And you're like, this all just doesn't matter. Well, guess what? You've done that process of brand realignment. And that's what happens. You grow, you gain more skills, you meet more people, you build those relationships. And the process of branding is all of those things. And then you have these cool tools like your social media platforms, like being at a school like Clemson and meeting more people to help build your brand. So activity time, I would like for you, if you want to take your phone out, take a picture of this slide, or just screen capture it, save it, because this is one set of questions that we're going to pull from. Now, I would love if you could keep these, because we have a second set of questions. So I'm not going to make you drop it in the chat or anything, but I'll talk you through these and how you can answer them respectively. And then we'll use the set of answers for our next set of questions. So hopefully that all made sense. But first, who are you? So if you have your phone, if you're on your laptops, open up a Word document or whatever you take notes in, or if you have a piece of paper and just want to jot these things down. But who are you? Typically, I ask you to maybe write down 3 to 5 words, some adjectives that describe you, maybe a few sentences. For me, if I were to go through this activity, I would say, which I will, who am I? I am an educator, I'm a designer, and I believe in the power of a singular voice to make change. Because these are things that are just clear and present on my mind today, and things that I'm thinking about as I'm kind of navigating this week. So that's who I am. Some of you might be like, I'm a sister, I am a great writer, or whatever it is, but who are you? And stick to those. Don't make it sound good for anybody else. Just who are you on May 24th at 10:15? What do you do that nobody else does? So for me, being an educator is a great part of my identity. I live on campus as the faculty and residence in the fraternity and sorority community. I'm here on campus talking to you today. Like, I love being in the classroom. I'm teaching in the summer. Like, I can't stop. I love imparting knowledge. So what do I do that nobody else does? Well, tackle this with a sense of maybe people do it, but you have your own unique spin. So if you've had me in class, or if you have met me, I think that I engage in unique ways in the classroom or in any sort of situation I have with students. So that's what I do that nobody else does. I have my own way of presenting myself to ensure that people can trust what I'm saying in the relationship we're building, but also it's a little fun. So that's what I do. You could be a great listener. You could be the person in the friend group or the sibling that people want to go to. So maybe you're a person who shows and demonstrates care and concern in a way that shows compassion in a way that people really respond to well, whatever it may be. But what do you do that nobody else does? Where do you do it? So this could be a little wonky depending on kind of where you are and what you are in life. But where do? I do it when I'm in the classroom, when I'm not in the classroom, everywhere it happens. But really, I feel successful. And you can use those kind of valence terms. But where do I do this thing that nobody else does and really responds to who I am? I do it when I am in a position to help, when I am in a position to teach, but also learn. So where do I do it? Literally in a physical space, it happens, but usually in instances where I have to rise to the occasion. Why should anyone care? I want to have you skip that one for right now. And let's go to when do you do it and how do you do it? So whatever your it is, think about the when and the how. For me, when I am in a position to work with students, it's typically when there are other people around. So I don't do this in a vacuum. Yeah, I'm turbo nerding it out, looking up things and doing research. But when do I do it? When I can engage with other human beings. And how do I do it? I do it by first knowing that I'm not the expert and other people may think I am. So sorry, don't mean to burst your bubble here, but I am not the expert on branding. I just read a lot about it and hopefully you get excited about it. But how do I do it? I do it by acknowledging that there's so much more to learn. So play with those questions. And then why should anyone care? This might be one of the most difficult questions when anybody asks, what, not outside of like, when are you graduating or where are you going to go? Where are you applying? But why should anybody care about what you do? This is a brand exercise that is given to Fortune 500 companies, CEO suites. This is where people really have to dig into who they are and what it means for their company, what it means for the people that they supervise, and what it means for the world that they're operating in. Why should anyone care? And this is going to play into your brand anthem and brand manifesto we're going to do. So for me, my answer would be, I think it's important that we have a world, and my vision for a better world is where people know how to dialogue with one another and they feel supported in that, whether they disagree, whether they are in alignment, whether they feel like they're coming to the table and they're not as prepared. They need to feel, and my students hopefully feel that they're in spaces where they can come as they are to a space and grow in that space. All right, so if you haven't taken a picture of the questions, take a picture, keep taking notes with them because we'll use this in a bit. So brands are born of experience and reflect reputation. So just like that high school, middle school example of people go through the game of telephone saying this, that, or the other about other individuals, and that impacts your reputation, you do the same thing. So typically, if we were in person, I'd do a show of hands of how many people brushed their teeth this morning. And that usually elicits most people in the room raising their hand. And then I ask what brand of toothpaste people use. And honestly, I'm kind of shocked. I'm a Crest kid, or I was a Crest kid, a lot of Colgate users, so whatever you use, hopefully, remember to floss as well. But you typically don't have an experience with toothpaste until you have to have an experience with toothpaste, right? So there's no reputation. Toothpaste is typically toothpaste unless you're trying to reach a certain goal. So when I had to switch to a more mature toothpaste like Sensodyne, I had a moment in the middle. I was literally in a Rite Aid and I go, I don't want to buy the Sensodyne. That means I'm an adult now. I'm going to have bills soon, but I had sensitive teeth and I was like, okay, well, I've seen the commercials. This is what I do. And I've been using it. And now I'm like, I'm an esteemed human being brushing my teeth with the Sensodyne. And now I have upgraded my whole oral hygiene suite of products because I don't want tooth sensitivity to disrupt my day. Right. So brands are born of experience and reflect reputation. Most of us wear Nikes and are not pro athletes, okay? But the pro athletes that do, like I wear the shoes I'm wearing, Serena Williams endorsed. Now, I cannot play tennis. I'm obviously not Serena. I know you thought I was Beyonce for a little bit, but I'm obviously not these people. But when I put them on, I feel like I can take on the world, right? And maybe you put on your shoes and you're like, I don't think that every day, but I bet you wear shoes that won't get you talked about, right? Nobody's in here with a pair of Fila's. You might not even know what that is, or off-label, off-brand. We tend to follow trends. And if you look across campus, usually I remember last fall, it was a tennis skirt. I'm like, is everybody playing tennis? Like, where is this coming from? But we follow each other. And typically the reputation is not the skirt. It's who's wearing it, how you fit in, what goes into being a part of this ascribed crowd and community. So now that I've given you a little bit of background, I want you to go back to your original questions and look at your answers You answered who you are. What do you do that nobody else does? How do you fit into kind of this articulation of who you are and why people should care? So now I want you to take a picture of these, screenshot, whatever it may be, but I want you to answer these. What are your goals? What do you value? What are you passionate about? What motivates you? And what makes you remarkable? And again, if we were in person, I'd probably ask for some pair and share, but I know that some of these things can be really close and personal. So in a virtual space, it's a little different. But if you want to drop in the chat anything or a question you have, or maybe you want to share an answer to one of these things, feel free to do so. Happy to engage with you that way. But I'll walk you through so you can think through how you're answering these, because you're going to use these answers to then finish up. And don't worry, we'll get through it and give you some time to kind of walk through your brand manifesto that you'll do today. So what are your goals? You can list out short-term, long-term, again, whatever is clear and present on your mind right now. So education right now is, I'm literally in my office doing work. So what are my goals? I hope to have an effective presentation today. I hope somebody gains something from it, but I also hope that I continue to do the good work that I feel very passionate about. And I need to remix a few things to relate to this incoming class of students a little bit better, but also reach the students that are here. So my goals are to do those things. What do I value? I value authenticity. And so for me, that means modeling that. And I'll tell you, I became really disengaged over the course of the last year and a half. It was very difficult for me to feel like what I was doing actually mattered and that I wasn't just kind of going through the motions. So what do I value? Getting back to my purpose, which also ties into what I'm passionate about, which is if I get back to my purpose, that means I'm doing a better job helping students find their purpose, which means that they have more of awareness about who they are. So when they update their LinkedIn profiles, when they're putting their resumes together, they actually have something that they believe in, they can talk about, and they don't feel as nervous about the future. What motivates me? Well, a lot of different things. Coffee right now, because it is 10 o'clock on a Tuesday and it's a little overcast here in Clemson. So coffee is doing wonders. But what motivates me when a student follows up? And my goal is that each of you follow up and we all kind of go out for coffee. We can meet up, all that fun stuff, and we build a relationship. But what motivates me really is if I can make at least one connection with a new person, and that person knows that they don't have to give me any credit or anything, but they feel good about the update they made to their LinkedIn or the connection they made or how they were able to bridge their understanding so they could be successful. That motivates me because when others are successful, I'm successful. Now, what makes you remarkable? And typically ignore the color scheme on here. I know it's a little difficult to read, but what makes you remarkable? Really think about what do you do that nobody else does? What's your added value? What's your promise? What's your vision for the world you want to live in? That means it's a great place to be. What makes you remarkable? And I'll say that's the toughest question I'll ask you today. So if you get through this, you can get through anything, but sit on that. You can ask others what makes you remarkable. It might vary depending on if you have siblings or parents or friends, but ask somebody maybe you're not as close to. Maybe somebody you have a relationship with, so you're not just on the street asking, a stranger, but really think about the responses you might get, but also think about the response you've given yourself. Because so often, especially for students, you don't get time to really think about who you are. So take this time. It may feel silly, it may feel uncomfortable, it may feel pointless, but I promise you there is a point, there's a reason. So take this moment to breathe and really reflect on all that you've brought to the table thus far. All right, so take your pictures now, and we are going to keep it moving. So I had to do those exercises because in your brand manifesto, you're going to write through the things that are going to appear on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, but also will appear on the visuals that you provide, say on your social media, on how you walk through campus. Maybe you're coming down the stairs in the business building. There's a way you carry yourself when you know who you are. And so many times that will get tested. You'll get pulled in many different directions. You're probably here, and I'm going to guess that everybody on this call is highly involved on many different leadership, execs, whatever opportunities avail themselves because you're the type of student to do that. You show up for something in the summer and you didn't have to. This is the type of student you are. So understanding what I'm about to tell you, if you remember two things, understand what brands are, but also what they aren't. So you sell the problem you solve, not the product. This simply means when it's time to apply for that internship, when it's time to apply for that job, there's a stack of resumes. There's a whole plethora of people who are talented, who are amazing, who are in many ways like you. They have the credible standards to meet the application criteria. But companies, organizations, people don't look for automatons to just do the work. They want to know your added value. So I wear Nikes, but I don't have to. I could wear any shoe to protect my feet. I could take my shoes off and just be standing here on the carpet. I could do so many things, but I wear Nikes because it's Nike. Nike is a cultural phenomenon that lets you know that one, I can afford Nike because there's a standard there, but also that maybe I have interest in style and fashion and want to be seen in a certain kind of way. And I know there's a lot of messaging about it doesn't matter what people think of you or people say about you, but in so many instances, it's how we create and organize our worlds. So if you understand what you're putting out there and how people organize themselves around it, then there you have it. You will fully understand how to better use that to your advantage. And that's all I want to do for you here. So sell the problem you solve, not the product. It's not toothpaste. It's tooth sensitivity, right? That I'm focusing on. And that's the problem it's solving for me. It's not that I love Starbucks coffee. It's the fact that I get to walk around. Well, one, it's convenient because it's right beside where I live, if you're familiar with the quad and core. But I actually prefer methodical coffee, but I just can't get it in Clemson as accessible as I could get Starbucks, right? But Starbucks has its own kind of brand purpose and value. I'm like, I'm walking around with Starbucks in my hand. I'm cool. And my pup gets a puppuccino. We love it. So those are the things that if you can think about how you can bring added value and it's the idea that you bring to the table, not just the person, you're golden. So let's talk about digital identity. How do you do that? There's print. Print's not dead. Okay. Like you may not pick up a physical newspaper. You may not even print out your resume, but it exists somewhere. So you have a trail that you're leaving, and that's what I mean by print. Okay. So there are emails you send, and people might save those and go back to them. And how did you speak? How did that look? There's digital that you exist on, right? We're on Zoom. You have pictures everywhere people have taken of you. People see who you're hanging out with. You may have been tagged in other things. So think about where you exist. And then there's interpersonal. It's the environment. It's your academic connections and community. It's your family and friends. That all plays into your overall identity, but we'll focus on the digital one now. So how do you shape this? You establish what you know. He answered 2 sets of questions. So hopefully you know a little something more about yourself and you've written it down. So you have to commit to it. And then you have to determine how you share it. So ignore Grogu. I love Grogu. It's digitized, it's whatever, but your online presence, think about what do you share? What platforms are you on? And how can you really invest? Because it is work to do well on LinkedIn and updating it and posting regularly, not just senior year, or it is a little bit of work to keep up with what your activities are and updating your resume. That's why it's important to understand those things, because maybe after checking in once a month on who you are and what you're putting out there, then when you log on to Instagram and you're like, oh my gosh, I had the best beach vacation ever, you think twice about maybe shouldn't post that picture, but I'll post this one because I literally am in an internship right now and I hate for this to get back to an employer. I don't think y'all are at any risk for that, but I have seen so many stories come through of students who have gotten into hot water, or my peers, like people I know who are on paid leave, and next thing you know, there's a little scuttle, and they haven't had the social capital built in to confront the things that are off brand or seemingly off brand for them, but seem to be on brand because that's all people know. And so people have had, verbal reprimands or things put into their files because of simple enjoyment and human pleasures. Now, am I a fan of that? No, but these are things that you need to be aware of because the world still operates as so. All right. So shaping your brand identity, and we'll go through different platforms, but these things, make sure that you are connecting with the people you want to connect with. So identify who they are. You know who you are, you know who you want to be seen as, and how and who you want to see you. So visibility, you got to build organizational credibility. You have the luxury of being at Clemson University. Clemson is a known name, lots of times for football, but the fact that people know it, nobody is talking about Clemson as an institution that's not doing well. So people may not know who you are, but they will know Clemson. They will also know potentially the academics you're working with, the advisors, the mentors, the people that you're engaging with. So that builds your own credibility. Increase engagement. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you should really hang out with the people in the Career Center, because they can help you with the resume and the professional tools that are going to help build that out for you. And then connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with other people that you have fostered relationships with, because we love helping the algorithm, because it's all an algorithm, boost you. So when it comes time to apply for those things or announce different things you're seeing, right? Have advocates. Advocates are mentors, advocates are friends, advocates are the people who are in alignment with you, your values, your mission, your goals, and then really foster the relationships that matter in an authentic way. So don't attach yourself to someone because they seem to be a rising star and you're like, I need to jump on this, because you may not be in brand alignment with them. And also, their rising star doesn't mean you will also rise. You could be missing out on opportunities because you're taking into account that other people might, help you tag along. That doesn't really work in that cycle. So how do you do it? Here you go. These are things that I think are helpful to know on the back end, so you know exactly kind of what you're going into. And I need to update these. So I'll say the numbers marginally different and I'll give you updates. So Twitter, I don't know how many of you have a Twitter account. You can do a reaction if you do, but Twitter's the biggest, another typo. This is why we don't update presentations at 2 a.m. The biggest political platform. So you probably are like, duh, we know everything comes off of Twitter. Screen shares, people, the Elon Musk right now is making Twitter, keeping in the headlines, right? But 45% of new users have college degrees. So it's a well-educated platform. And many associations, whether it's pop culture or academic or something in between, Twitter is the place where people go to find out what's happening. So news outlets have thrived on Twitter, because if there's an event, if you're local, you probably remember, I think last week or the week before, there was a fire somewhere out in Easley or like Greenville area. I went immediately to Twitter to find out like what's burning down. So wasn't anything special. And it was this auto shop junkyard thing that was burning in flames. And it was kind of cool because everybody was taking pictures of it, but I'm like, also not that cool. Glad I looked it up on Twitter and I kept it moving. But Twitter's an information source. So if you're not on it, you should engage with it marginally just to understand what it is. Instagram. Most of you, if not all of you, have an Instagram. There are over 1 billion users, and then most of them half of them are active every single day. Okay, so 71%, that number has increased a little bit, but people your age use it to network. Okay, they use Instagram to, whether it's sliding into somebody's DMs or figuring out who was wearing what at Courtney's wedding, or if it's just simply to find out the funniest memes and send those to your friends, because that's how y'all communicate. But you're using it to build relationships or affirm relationships. I'm going to move over to Facebook now. Facebook, you might have started one, but you may not check on it. Typically, your generation is not heavy into the Facebook, but Meta owns everything. So you're probably on Facebook without being on Facebook. 1.4 billion daily users on Facebook. And it's not just your aunts and your grandmas and whatnot, 25 to 34-year-olds. So the people who probably are going to be the hiring managers are looking at Facebook. And I don't know why, geez, the bigot, I don't know, ignore the typos. I'll send you an updated one. Let's go to LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is your professional presence. You should have a LinkedIn. All right. Have a LinkedIn page. It's an easy to cultivate and curate site for you. That's not anything else that you can use to your best ability. So it's your digital resume. It also helps you connect to other people who gain credibility and build your authenticity on a virtual platform. And then some of you are creative. Some of you might have a personal website of your things. So if you do, great. It helps demonstrate your experience. And so if you have one of those, you can attach it to any platform. And this is just a sampling of those platforms. So keep your networks manageable. All right. So if you're on the job market, your networks are probably going to be LinkedIn. You're going to be on email. Another sad story is group projects. You're always going to be working on Teams and emails. They will always exist. Okay. So that's never escaping. I know students I hear, I'm like, oh my gosh, we just get so many emails. Yep. Yep. That's what the real world looks like. And guess what? This is the real world. So are you searching for internships? There might be different sites you're trying to connect to. If you're trying to build your network, you might be fresh and new on all of these things. They may give you a little bit of anxiety, but don't let it just breathe. Choose one at a time. All right. And then establish your social voice and tone. So your brand has a voice. All right. So people are consistently building their impression of you, just like you've built your impression of me. So be open, but also have a mentor, have a sounding board. So before you post something, maybe if you know that editing, I needed an editor for this presentation, but if you think, how does this sound? Have a person or people do that for you, or imagery, or whatever it may be, but have trusted folks in your corner, those advocates that you've built relationships with, assist you with that. So you are sharing the appropriate brand voice. And I will tell you, Clemson students are really good at this. You know how to articulate yourself well across multiple platforms. So don't give yourself too much of a headache about this. Be sure to share and promote your work. Now, a lot of folks are like, well, what work do I share? Like, I just wrote this paper, or I did a presentation for class, and that's not interesting. Yes, yes, it is. Most of you, if not all of you, have at least or will be going into courses that have a practical and applied experience, even if it's a term paper, okay? Maybe not interesting, but that group project that you did that was, helping out a local organization, a nonprofit, share how it helped them. What did you do? Tag the nonprofit on LinkedIn, or share an Instagram story about how you're going to class and you're really excited to present to this community partner, whatever it may be, but share and promote your work in a way that feels right for you. So I'm not saying share everything that you turn in, but there are certain things that will have meaning and help others know what you're passionate about. So maybe it's nonprofit work. Maybe you really love sport and you got to work on a paper with a professor in a creative inquiry about CTE or youth sports and how people are negotiating and navigating those things. Share posts from influencers. You may not have the original content, but you can cultivate your network. That explore page, if you open it up on Instagram, it's cultivated by the people you also follow. So depending on what you've clicked on, what things that you've stopped long enough to scroll on that they've gotten your data from, and guess what? Your data is always out there. Your data is shared. It's all there. Share posts from influencers, because you may have a lot of friends that I have a bunch of friends that are highly athletic. So I get a lot of sporty ads. Don't know why my friend group doesn't want to support me in my gym, but it's cool. But I'm really inspired by them, right? So I have ended up following influencers in the health and wellness realm that have actually been really great for me to go back to and share things, especially when it comes to mental health and wellness, right? So I've done that, and sometimes I repost them to my story. Hey, follow me, keep me accountable too. Like, I haven't seen much in this area, but share posts from influencers because it could really mean something to you, especially when it aligns with your values. And then share personal stories. Like, if there's something that you've seen, you've done, or you really are excited about, you can talk about that. People want to know that there's a human behind this page, this screen, this thing that I'm scrolling through all the time. I love it. Okay. So I want you to know that you can talk about your life as it is, because you're fascinating. You're the most fascinating subculture. I'm going to call it that because we don't understand millennials don't really understand the Gen Zers, right? We say that, but we want to know who you are. We want to know what you're passionate about. We want to know that the future is bright. So share all those things. And the rule of thirds. So the rule of thirds are, hey, maybe if you're a monthly, if you're weekly, if you're daily, depending on how active you are, but make sure you take time at least once to share your own stuff, share something from an influencer, and then maybe share how it relates to you or something that's, relatable for you in the rule of thirds. So you don't overwhelm. Practical tools. How do you decide what to use? Well, you probably won't use many of these. Hootsuite's more of a professional one if you're managing multiple accounts, but Canva, if you are not inherently creative and want to bring something that's visually stimulating, use Canva. Love Canva. I love Canva to the point, though, that it's beautifully articulated. Use it as inspiration. Don't use templates. That's my whole thing. Just templates will destroy you, because guess what? Everybody else is using them too. You don't stand out. Linktree is really great to put in your bios. So if you want to connect to influencers or professional associations that you might be a member of. So I know we have the Public Relations Student Society of America. That is something that there is a professional, the Public Relations Society of America, and maybe you want to connect to the student chapter so people can know what you're doing, because maybe y'all have an Instagram account or a LinkedIn page. But WordPress, your academic community, but I highlighted real conversations because that's how people get to know who you are and how you get to know who you are and how you're being seen. We're almost done. So here's the last thing I have for you, and it is the Brand Manifesto. So what is this? Why is manifesto in this word? It's such an old school term. Well, every brand you consume, whether you're wearing it, you're consuming it, you're looking at it, it's called a brand promise, a brand vision, but you are a brand. So you need to know what it is that you're affirmed with. So screen grab this, take a picture of it, but I want you to be able to answer these questions. And so take this, and I want you to spend, if you have more time in your day, sit down for half an hour and answer these. So I'm going to go through it really quickly, and then we'll get to some questions, and I'm happy to bring up anything, but I am for. What are you for? What do you stand for? I am for, we're going to go back to the education bit, but I am for people having the opportunity, ability, and access to the things in which they desire. So that's what I'm for. Very broad, right? And this is really just me pulling it off the top of my brain right there. Here's what I know for sure. I know that inequities exist, but I can do my very best to make sure that they don't. Because I said access, right? And education's my thing. I want people to have access to the things they desire. But sometimes there are obstacles. I believe in people. I believe in the power of living authentically to make a change. I embrace challenge. I am not scared of ideas. I'm not scared of disagreement. So I embrace challenges. So if you saw a little bit more about my exercise and what I went through with that first set of questions, I think it's fun to unpack these things, because there might be something that I can respond to in that. It might be surrounded by a bunch of stuff that I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I embrace challenge. I want nothing more than to leave a legacy of compassion and thoughtfulness in this world. That's a little narcissistic, but I'm an only child. I care deeply about the people around me and their ability to live the life they desire. I hope to one day be on a yacht in the Mediterranean. But for this, I hope to one day be able to look back at my career and the people in my life and know that they're better because we did it together. I feed off of, I'm going to go back to challenges, but also I feed off of growth and pressure. Ignore the responsible typo again, 2 a.m. I am responsible for keeping myself accountable for the things that I say and the work that I do. And I will show the world that wonders never cease. So maybe I've done this exercise a little bit, but that is what my manifesto is. So if you can answer these statements, it can turn into a paragraph. And I should have dropped some samples for you of what, but if you go to some of the brands you like, I think that you can get some inspiration from there. So here's some tools, you know, all of these things, but cultivate those relationships, connect everything that you do in a digital world, but also understand that depending on internship or job, or you're just curious about putting your toe in and seeing what it's all like and what it feels like, develop that visible platform and start enjoying those conversations. And so with that, I thank you. My contact information is right there. That is a picture of me. I was going to put Beyonce right there, but I figured the joke has already landed. So you can follow me. That's Pindarlow is my handle on all accounts. Lori P at Clemson. Don't use the G. I don't know where those go, but Lori P, if you have any questions or want to share your manifesto, I would love to see it. And in the fall, I'll be in Stroh Tower, but you can find me in the College of Business. So I'm in the Irwin Center. So it's kind of like, I'll show you, I'll pan around, but if you know where this area is, then I'll be in the fishbowl in office. So I am going to stop share so I can look at different things and whatnot. But yeah, I'll still love the chat. I was like, Beyonce. Yeah, Beyonce. All right. But thank you all. You have been, thank you for participating. Okay. Hey, Luke. Good to see you. You have a nice headshot. Love that. But any questions, or what are your questions? I'm happy to answer them while we have time.
Feel free to type them in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. And thank you so much, Dr. Pindar, for presenting. I think you bring about so many valuable points, and the very fact that these folks are participating in our professional development certificate, I think they're involved in leaders in their own right. So hopefully this is just kind of old hat for them, but it's nice reminders.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Y'all are a great group. Thanks for doing this. I'd say I commend you. I wish I had taken more opportunities to develop myself and really look at the benefit overall. So I can say you're all on the right path. You're doing exactly what you need to do, and you're exactly where you need to be to become the people that I know that you will, to influence the world and make it a great place.
Thank you. Well, I don't see any questions. So if you guys feel free to hop off, if you don't have any questions, you can hang out if you want to kind of wait, unmute yourself if you have more of a private question for Dr. Pindar.
Yeah, I'm going to grab my coffee. So I'm ready.